Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of the AIMS SET facility, I welcome you to a series of webinars being conducted here by the WHO Collaborative Center, the AIM Obstetric and Gynecology Department, AIMS New Delhi. We will be talking about the different aspects of obstetric care during COVID-19. This has become very important because, as you know, the protocols for management of COVID and non-COVID patients is rapidly evolving, and therefore, to know the suggested protocols for optimum obstetric care, so that both the mother and the healthcare workers are protecting during these times is important, and that's why we have come out with this series of webinars where we will cover antenatal care, care during labor, and postnatal care. We'll also be discussing the care of the newborn during these times and the anesthesia aspect of obstetric care. The first talk today is by Professor Sunesh Kumar on antepartum and intrapartum care at primary and secondary healthcare facilities in different parts of the country. So he'll discuss on protocols and how to manage these patients at primary and secondary healthcare settings. This will be followed by a question and answer session. So as you watch the talk, you can send in your queries, your concerns, and any things which is not covered in the talk on the live chat box, and we will try to take up as many questions as possible during the discussion part, which will be after the end of the talk. So let's over to Professor Sunesh Kumar for his talk.
Good morning. I am Dr. Sunesh Kumar, Professor and Head, Department of Gynecology at AIMS New Delhi, and I am joined by my team members, Dr. Aparna Sharma, Dr. Jyoti. In this webinar which we are telecasting today, we have briefly touched upon how to set up facilities for antenatal care and intrapartum care of pregnant women, both at primary level and at district health level. All of us are faced with unprecedented situation. When we were studying MBBS or MD and when we were practicing, we never had an idea that suddenly we will be faced with a health situation which will all of a sudden change our practice of health care. Although coronavirus infection is like any other infection such as flu, but it is with a difference. If somebody gets this infection, it stays in throat and pharynx for a period of 2 to 3 weeks, and one infected person can infect almost up to 400 or more people. Although in most cases who get this infection, slowly infection clears, but in certain people this infection can travel downwards to affect lungs. It has been seen people who are more than 60 years of age, who are diabetic, who have some cancer or are immunocompromised are at a higher risk of developing serious complication due to this infection. You may have seen a lot of hospitals have just closed down their routine practices, routine care because of this infection, that this may not spread to others. But our services is one where we deal with pregnant women, that we have to still continue to care these women. Fortunately, data which we have suggests that this infection does not alter course of pregnancy. It does not affect growing fetus inside in any case, and even deliveries can take place in the usual manner. So today we will see how we need to change in the current perspectives. The present system which we follow in India, we have a ASHA worker, we have a lady health visitor, ANM, who at grassroots level look after pregnant women. In lot of places, Anganwadi worker is the first contact with the pregnant person in the area. They usually provide primary care to these women, but they also keep record of such a patient. They get in touch with either ANM or LHV and try to identify whether this pregnant woman has a high risk pregnancy. So attempts are made to decide whether her delivery will have to be managed at a center with adequate facility. Now in current scenario, we will continue with this same management. The ASHA worker or Anganwadi worker will be the first contact person, and she keeps record of all the pregnant women in her area. She may have to change her practices little bit that she doesn't become a source of infection. So when she moves around in an area, she tries to limit her visit only to one locality, and she can plan visit to other area on another date. She keeps in touch with ANM. She also asks ANM or LHV to inform the district's officers about pregnancy in her area. The important thing in management in current times is to prevent spread of infection. So whenever we come across a pregnant lady, we always first put few basic questions. Where are you coming from? Or in other words, we want to know, is she coming from a hot spot? We also will like to know, has she come in contact with a positive COVID patient or a suspected patient either in her family or in her neighborhood? And third thing, we will ask, does she have any symptoms in the form of fever, cough, or other symptoms which may suggest that probably she may have contracted this infection. So when we come across a pregnant lady, if she does not have any of these symptoms, then we plan her subsequent management in pregnancy. ASHA worker keeps record of this patient. She arranges her visits and examination by ANM, and she also provides a phone number to the pregnant woman that in case she develops some symptom or she needs some care, instead of rushing to a hospital or a center, she should first talk to ASHA worker or Anganwadi worker on phone. In current time, we have seen that a number of problems can be just settled by talk on the phone. So she can plan her visits on a fixed day, and she should limit the places where she is visiting on one day. She maintains record of all the patient in her area, and she also um, arranges and inform seniors in her area that is such a person in the area who is pregnant and may likely to deliver. During home visits, she talks to the family members. She explains family member that this infection does not pose any extra risk to her baby inside her uterus or to her. Normally, we have been planning 6 to 8 antenatal visits for a pregnant woman. but in current era of COVID infection, we can limit these only to 4 visits, one at 12 weeks, one at 20 weeks, third at 28 weeks, and fourth at 36 weeks. During the first visit, we confirm her diagnosis of pregnancy. We advise her basic tests such as hemoglobin, blood group, blood sugar, urine examination, and we also initiate her in taking iron and folic acid tablets. And we tell her that now you need to be seen after a period of 2 months at 20 weeks. During second visit, we assess whether the uterus is growing at expected rate. We check her blood pressure, and during second visit we ensure that she has one ultrasound. This single ultrasound in pregnancy provides lot of information, whether there is a single pregnancy, whether baby is growing normally, whether there is any associated anomaly, and it also tells about position of placenta. We tell patient that she needs 2 doses of tetanus toxoid, one which can be given now and one after 1 month, and we emphasize on her taking iron and calcium. In the third visit, which we plan at 28 weeks, we try to assess growth of the fetus, we check her blood pressure, and in case she is at a risk of diabetes, we subject her to blood sugar testing. In India, we have seen chances of developing raised blood sugar in pregnancy is fairly high. More than 20% women have raised sugar. So we can do either a glucose tolerance test or we can do a glucose challenge test. And in case she is found to have raised sugars, we will accordingly guide her. Those who are Rh negative at 28 weeks can be given one dose of anti-D 300 microgram. And now we tell this patient that in case you have any symptoms such as premature labor pain, bleeding, leaking, what she should do and whom she should contact. It is possible that even if her sugars are raised, BP is raised, she can be managed at home if she has a BP monitor or blood glucometer at home. The last visit we plan at 36 weeks, and this visit is with the idea of planning her mode of delivery, her place of delivery, and to instruct her when and how to reach the health facility where delivery is planned. In antenatal period, we should follow these 5 principles. Social distancing. If she comes to a health facility, maintain a distance of at least 1 meter. Respiratory hygiene. She should wear a mask. In case she has come without a mask, we should provide her a mask. In India, a lot of relatives always accompany patient, so we need to ensure that minimum number of relatives come, and relatives should also be given a mask. And then she should be taught that she should avoid touching her face again and again. We should emphasize on hygiene of the hands, and we should tell that preferably she should remain at home and avoid social mixing during marriages and other functions. In case there is someone who is suspected to have COVID infection either in family or in the neighborhood, she should try to keep herself away from and continue to use mask. She should be taught that whenever she is in problem, she should first ring up a ASHA worker or Anganwadi worker. If possible, phone number of the hospital where she is planning delivery should be with her, and she can first talk to the facility on phone, and then only she should go to the hospital. Even while she is being taken to a hospital, preferably we should use a transport which is not used for all other purposes. One never knows that who may be infected or may be suspect. And when she reaches a hospital or a facility, how one should go about. So I'll first tell what changes we have brought about at AIIMS New Delhi. Whenever a pregnant woman who was early showing to us or otherwise comes, right at the gate of our ward, there is a doctor or a health worker who puts five simple questions. Ma'am, from where are you coming? Is it a hot spot? Do you have any fever or cough or sore throat? Have you come in contact with a patient or a suspected person in last 1 week or 10 days? And then we ask, has she been to any other hospital before she came here? Has she been referred? In case we find that she is now a suspect case because she either has come from an area which government has declared as a hotspot, or she recently was in touch with some patient or some suspected person, or her symptoms are such that she could be a suspect case, then we don't mix her up with the other patient in a normal labor room. We have created another facility for suspected cases. We generally take these pregnant women to that area. There is a separate team of doctors and nurses in that area. They examine the patient after using the protective uh, equipments, and sample is immediately sent for testing. We wait for the test report. If a test comes out to be negative, we now shift her to the routine labor room where she is managed like a normal patient. If a test report shows that she is positive for infection, we shift her to another facility, and that is called as COVID positive facility in our hospital. In this facility, we deliver patient or we even do cesarean, but this facility is used only for COVID patients. The team of gynecologists, team of anesthetists is all different, and there is no mixing with any other facility there. During antenatal period, during labor, and after delivery, she stays there and she goes home from there only. In case woman has been kept in suspect area and report is yet to come, and meanwhile she delivers, so we conduct her delivery in this facility which is called as suspect facility, and we keep her there till her report becomes available. It may not always be possible to have this three level of facility in all district hospitals and other hospitals. I am aware there are a lot of hospitals where there is only one operation theatre which is used for all other specialty also. There is only one labor room. There is only one ward where pregnant and postnatal patients are kept. But in this current era of COVID positive, we need to create a separate facility. The ward, the operation theatre, all of the facilities should be separate for COVID positive and COVID suspect patient. In fact, entry to all these three areas should be separate from entry to normal patients. So depending upon where you are working, depending upon what facilities you have, you may modify your practices, you may modify your place so that there is no intermixing of a COVID positive or suspect patient with a normal patient. Same way, the people who are going to look after these patients, either a positive patient or suspect patient, should be separate team, a separate team of doctors, separate team of nurses, separate team of paramedical person, and even sanitary workers. There should not be no mixing. Generally, in India, there is a tendency for relatives to enter the facility. They want to stay with the pregnant women. This we should try to avoid. We should invent simple words tell relative that is such a risk. However, still if relatives insist, we can take only one relative who will be asked to use this dress, and she should be explained that she may contact this infection. We should not change relatives too often. So we may have two kind of centers, one which offer basic facilities and one which offer advanced emergency obstetric care with facility for blood transfusion, cesarean section, neonatal care. So each of these facility will need little modification, and depending upon your hospital, your situation, your space, you may incorporate these. We should have standard operating practices, all meeting of all doctors, nurses, MS, other people, and decide that this is how we will manage, and it should be written so that everybody follows same practice. Personnel are also to be identified, and we should stress upon them that they should stick to their routine so that there is no mixing of people. We should ensure adequate supply of personal protective equipments, and in addition to this, the standard infection control practices which we have been using for last 20 years since the time HIV infection became common should also be followed in this era. So for each of your area, you can plan and formulate policies. You can have your own protocol depending upon your hospital or what is consensus between various people in your area. And whenever any patient comes, in lot of places women may come for the first time in labor, we need to screen her by asking from where is she coming, has she come in contact with some suspected person, and we should also, in case she is referred from a previous hospital, try to ring up and find out that what was her condition, why she is being referred, and has anything been done for management at that center. And in the area where we are going to keep her in labor or going to do cesarean, we have to ensure that extra things are removed from that area. We limit number of attendants, and we should have a separate OT with all facilities. It is very important in current time to give equal respect to all the people, be it doctor, nurse, paramedical person, anesthetist, or even sanitary worker, equal respect, because in management of such cases, each one of these plays very important role, and all of us have same fear: am I going to contract infection from the patient? And for this, we have WHO guidelines for health worker. They have said if we have a patient who is positive, doctor, nurse, or one of the health personnel, they should always wear mask. Ordinary mask may not be adequate. Better is to have N95 mask. While coming close to a patient, the person should use personal protective equipments, gown, gloves. One thing strange about this current infection is It enters your body only through oral mucosa or skin contact. Even if there's a blood spillage on your skin, even if there's a prick by needle or there's spillage of blood, that will not lead to contracting infection from a positive patient. After using all these things, they should be safe disposable of these items. And for this purpose, there are three bins: red bin 1, red bin 2, and red bin 3. And each one of is for different purpose. The goggles face mask should first be put in the bleaching powder solution for 10 minutes. And after drying and wiping with alcohol, then it should be put in bin 1. For N95 mask and head cover, one should put it in bin 2 and other items are put in bin 3. It is very important to ensure safe disposal. Fortunately, all agencies, health agencies have identified that how should we carry out disposable of items which have been used in this area. So we can have a simple way of deciding. So when a woman reaches labor room or a emergency, she's either in labor or otherwise she has come for care. First thing is to provide her with a mask. She should be asked to maintain a distance of 1 meter from each other. We should also provide mask to a relative who is with her and ask her, does she have any fever, cough, any breathing difficulty or GIT symptoms. If we should also ask, has she had come in contact with a positive case in last few 10 days, or has she has had a close contact with a family member in the same family. And then we should decide whether she needs admission. If she's not in labor, after doing her initial assessment in the form of checking pulse, blood pressure, examining her abdomen, we may suggest her that you are not in labor and she can be sent back home with quarantine facilities, that she should stay at home, she should use mask. But sometimes women, although not in labor, but has come from a long distance and we are not sure whether she can go in labor in next few days. So in this case, we can make arrangement for her stay either in the same hospital or in another facility, COVID care facility, where she stays, and only when she starts having true labor pain that she is brought to hospital and admitted. We have seen people who were well on first day and within 24 hours started having symptoms of having difficulty in breathing, fever. So it may be good idea not to send patient who came in near full term but they were not in labor. It may be better to keep her in some close by area. In COVID era, the mode of delivery is no different. She can have normal delivery and cesarean section is reserved only for obstetric indication. There is only one situation where we may prefer to deliver her by cesarean. Suppose she has already developed involvement of lungs and she is on ventilator. In that case, it may be better to deliver her by a cesarean section under the care of expert anesthetist. We should always ensure availability of blood in case she develops postpartum hemorrhage. The women after delivery should also be kept in this area only and should not be mixed with the other patient. She can be allowed to breastfeed her baby. So far, there is no report to suggest that breastfeeding can lead to infection of her newborn baby. However, as a precaution, she can be advised that she can use mask. She should wash her hands before feeding and after feeding. Generally, patient remain in hospital till her test reports show that she has become negative. After delivery, she is also given other care and advice like care of perineum, how to safely dispose her diapers, continuing use of iron folic acid, and she is encouraged to continue to breastfeed the baby. Breastfeeding is supposed to be a good practice, especially in our Indian setup where it is probably the best form of feeding. And when she is being sent home, she is again provided with the phone number of ASHA worker or ANM, where she can first contact the person in case of any difficulty. Whilst transporting her home, we should send her home in a vehicle or ambulance which is not used for routine purposes. Otherwise, that may become source of transmission of this infection.
क्या आप गर्भवती हैं और कोरोना वायरस की वजह से चिंतित हैं? फिक्र ना करें और हमारी सलाह लें। पहले बात करते हैं गर्भावस्था के दौरान देखभाल की। यदि आप शुरुआत के महीनों में हैं और आपको कोई जटिलता नहीं है, तो आप अपनी एंटीनेटल जांच को कुछ दिन स्थगित कर सकती हैं। पर ध्यान रखें कि कम से कम 4 बार जांच करानी जरूरी है और डॉक्टर या नर्स के सभी निर्देशों का पालन करना है। आप गर्भावस्था की मामूली शिकायतों के लिए डॉक्टर या नर्स से फोन पर सलाह भी ले सकती हैं, ताकि बार बार अस्पताल ना जाना पड़े। किंतु आपात स्थिति के लिए या जोखिम वाली गर्भावस्था में तुरंत अस्पताल जाएं। जब आप एंटीनेटल चेकअप के लिए नजदीकी पीएचसी या सीएचसी या निजी अस्पताल में जाएं, तो वहां दूसरों से कम 1 मीटर की दूरी बनाए रखें। बुखार, खांसी, सांस लेने में तकलीफ आदि होने पर जल्द से जल्द डॉक्टरी जांच कराएं। अब हम बात करते हैं डिलीवरी की। याद रखें कि डिलीवरी के लिए स्वास्थ्य केंद्र में ही जाएं, क्योंकि घर पर डिलीवरी कराने में खतरा हो सकता है। अगर आपको कोई जटिलता नहीं है, तो आप अपने घर के नजदीक ही किसी सीएचसी या पीएचसी या एक निजी अस्पताल में डिलीवरी के लिए जाएं। लेकिन अगर कोई जटिलता हो, तो किसी बड़े अस्पताल में ही डिलीवरी के लिए जाएं, जहां सिजेरियन की सुविधा उपलब्ध हो। यदि आप गर्भवती हैं और आपको कोरोना वायरस संक्रमण होने का संदेह या पुष्टि हुई है, तो आपको क्या करना है, अब उसके बारे में बात करते हैं। याद रखें कि गर्भवती महिलाओं में कोरोना संक्रमण आम लोगों जितना ही होता है, उससे अधिक गंभीर नहीं होता। बस अपने चिकित्सक की सलाह का पूरी तरह से पालन करें। यदि आपका कोरोना संक्रमण गंभीर नहीं है और आपको घर पर रहने के लिए कहा जाता है, तो आइसोलेशन की सभी सावधानियों का पालन करें, जैसे कि मास्क पहनना और दूसरों से दूरी बनाए रखना। यदि गर्भावस्था के दौरान कोई भी तत्काल समस्या नहीं है, तो आइसोलेशन के बाद ही अपनी नियमित एएनसी जांच के लिए जाएं। यदि आप में कोई चिंताजनक लक्षण विकसित होते हैं या आपकी प्रसव पीड़ा शुरू हो जाती है, तो निर्धारित अस्पताल में ही जल्द से जल्द जाएं। अस्पताल पहुंचने के पहले ही कर्मचारियों को सूचित करें कि आपको कोरोना इन्फेक्शन है, ताकि वो आपको आइसोलेशन में ले जाकर देखभाल करें। आपकी डिलीवरी नॉर्मल है या सिजेरियन, ये आपकी गर्भावस्था संबंधी स्थिति पर और स्वास्थ्य कर्मचारियों के निर्णय पर निर्भर करेगा। अब बात करते हैं स्तनपान की। अब तक कोई सबूत नहीं है कि कोरोना वायरस प्लेसेंटा या दूध के माध्यम से मां से बच्चे में जाता है, इसीलिए आपको अपने नवजात शिशु से अलग नहीं रखा जाएगा। यदि आपको कोरोना संक्रमण है, तो आप स्तनपान जारी रख सकती हैं, लेकिन कुछ सावधानियां बरतें, जैसे कि स्तनपान कराते समय मास्क पहने, बच्चे को छूने से पहले और बाद में हाथ धोएं, बच्चे पर छींकें या खांसे नहीं। इन सभी बातों का पालन करें ताकि आप और आपका शिशु दोनों स्वस्थ रहें। UNFPA द्वारा जनहित में जारी।
तो आपने अभी ये जो हिंदी में वीडियो देखा बहुत ही अच्छा है और ये UNFPA ने तैयार किया है और इसमें ज़्यादातर जो भी बातें प्रेग्नेंट वुमेन पे अप्लाई होती हैं वो बहुत अच्छे से समझाई गई हैं। मेरे विचार में तो जब पेशेंट हमारे यहाँ प्राइमरी हेल्थ सेंटर में डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल हॉस्पिटल में आए तो इस तरह के वीडियो वहाँ पे टेलीविजन पे चलने चाहिए और इससे बहुत सारी जो महिलाओं के दिमाग में भ्रमण है या डर है वो दूर हो जाएगा। धन्यवाद।
Yes.
Good afternoon, all. I am Dr. Jyoti Meena, and I welcome you all to the question and answer session. We have with us Dr. Sunesh Kumar. He is professor and head of the Department of Obs and Gynae Department, AIMS. We have Dr. Vimla Upadhyay. She is UNFPA representative. We have Dr. Aparna Sharma. She is additional professor, Department of Obs and Gynae, AIMS. We have received few questions and we will like to start with the question and answer session. First, ma'am, I would like to start with Dr. Vimla. Ma'am, why is it is important to maintain essential services at primary level?
Because of the pandemic and whenever there are epidemics, the health system is burdened with the disease itself. And if we don't maintain the essential services, the faith of the people on the health system goes down. At the same time, because of the social distancing and other issues, people don't come to the hospitals and the health system. That leads to the associated morbidities and mortalities, which are due to various already compromised issues. Like if we don't give the family planning services or maternal health services, the women, the associated morbidity of maternal health are going to increase, and that would lead to burdening of the already burdened health system.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to ask Sir, what are the precautions to be followed while delivery to prevent the risk of infection to the baby?
Whatever information we have with us, there is not an increased risk of transmission of this infection to the newborn baby. It doesn't seem to spread through the placenta, but still we need to take precautions. At the time of delivery, pregnant women must continue to use mask, preferably N95 mask. Doctors, nurses who are present in the delivery room should use proper protective equipment, and at the time of delivery we should uh, not delay cord clamping for too much, although there is not enough data, but recently few reports have come suggesting that it may travel to newborn through the blood flow through umbilical cord, and after baby has been delivered we have clamped the cord. Baby should be dried up. Baby, we should take care of the umbilical cord, and baby should be kept at a safe distance from mother. However, it has been also seen that breastfeeding does not predispose newborn baby to any increased risk, so that we should always keep in mind while advising about breastfeeding to the mother.
Thank you, sir. Now, Dr. Aparna, we have a question. They are asking that different states are following different drug management for pregnant women. So, which is the best drug combination that has been proven safe?
So I would say that currently it's very difficult to actually say what is the safest drug in pregnancy, because currently the drug management has not been standardized for COVID per se. None of the drugs are really, very effective. And in pregnancy, we have to be very safe for the first in the first instance. So if the patient is actually mildly symptomatic or she is not very symptomatic, so first of all, we don't really need to start any drug. So I think that is what is so preventive role is currently not there of any of the drugs that we are normally giving for the non-pregnant patients. So we are not starting any drug for prophylaxis per se, which is really evidence-based. And also for the purpose of treatment in pregnancy, lot of experimental therapies, we have to be very careful while starting drugs. So I cannot say that there is some very evidence-based management which is available. So we have to be very careful while starting drugs in pregnancy.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Vimla, I want to ask. They have a question that why can't we involve the NGOs to coordinate these activities at the grassroots level? Can we involve them?
Yes, we can surely involve them, and I would like to tell that currently many NGOs are involved in at grassroots level. They are involved in training of ASHAs. They are involved in supply commodity facilitation, and also like managing the COVID, supporting the government and supporting the team in managing the COVID facilities. And also mentoring support is being provided. Many NGOs are involved in training of the like ANMs, ASHAs, and frontline workers. That is a big role NGOs are playing, and government is also actively involving them in many of the activities.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Aparna, like to ask what type of PP should be used for suspected COVID area rounds, routine rounds? What type of PP we should use?
Right. So first of all, if it is a not like a COVID positive area, so if it is a COVID suspected area, so in that, or even your routine rounds where you are taking patients are asymptomatic, or in your day to day patient management. So now in this present scenario, because you're not testing everybody for COVID, so we need to take something which we call a level 1 precaution. So we should be wearing a gown at least, and we should be wearing a mask. And because pediatricians are coming very close to the babies when they're trying to tell them how to breastfeed, so they should be wearing a mask with a face shield. So in the morning only I had a discussion with our neonatologist, and she was wearing a face mask, and she was saying that when we teach the babies mothers how to breastfeed, so we have to go very close to the babies and the mother, so they should wear a mask and a face shield. So I think a basic minimum is a gown with gloves and a mask and a face shield, and I think this applies to even obstetricians in the labor room who are actually dealing with asymptomatic pregnant women, but delivering even pregnant women who are screen negative. And because we are not doing universal testing, facility is not available everywhere, so but at least if we take these respiratory precautions and contact precautions, then in that case I think we are reasonably safe, in the sense that we'll be taking at least level 1 to level 2 precautions.
So definitely the safety measures comes first, so we have to protect ourselves. Another question we have, sir, that they have asked what should be the referral guidelines for COVID positive women from a primary level?
COVID positive women should be delivered in a facility where there is a facility for taking care of COVID positive patient, including her respiratory symptoms in case she lands up in some sudden problem. Most often it is a respiratory infection or respiratory distress. It has been seen that at primary health center level, most of us are not equipped to handle a COVID positive patient. In current scenario, most district hospitals, the medical colleges and tertiary level hospitals have created separate facility. There is a separate team of doctors, separate team of nurses, and a separate team of other personnel who provide care to COVID positive patient. And if a COVID positive patient delivers in such a facility, it is always safer and it is better both to the women and also to the people who are conducting such a delivery. So it will be ideal to have a separate facility for COVID positive patient. Giving example of AIIMS New Delhi, we have turned our trauma center into a COVID positive hospital. Not only women but even other type male patients, children who have been found to be COVID positive. Once they reach hospital, they are shifted to that place, and this place has separate team of doctors, nurses, anesthetists, and other personnel. So a COVID positive patient preferably may be delivered at such a facility.
Thank you, sir.
So Dr. Jyoti, I would like to ask one question. Like now we're going to start OPDs, and in some of the hospitals, most of the OPDs will now be, running, or they are already running. So in our antenatal clinics, pregnant patients would be coming. So how to save, keep ourselves safe in our antenatal clinics? You're taking blood pressures and weight and per abdomen. So how do we go about it? Like, keeping ourselves safe in the OPDs.
So important thing is first we have to screen all the patients who are coming to the OPD, whether they are coming from a high risk area or not. And important thing is we have to take all the safety precautions and all the protection measures to be taken while examining these patients. So whoever the doctor who is sitting there should wear a face mask, N95, face shield, gown, and gloves are important because we will be examining the patient and we will be in contact with the patient. So it is very important. So whenever we are taking a blood pressure, the blood pressure that cuff should be swiped with the 75% alcohol. And we will preferably, if we are using a stethoscope or we are doing an examination, we have to use the gloves to examine, and the stethoscope with which we are locating the fetal heart sound, we have to clean it with again alcohol before using it on another patient. And we have to when we are examining the patient, we have to maintain the cleanliness. The sheet should be disposed of before we are getting another patient, just to a precautionary measure to avoid infection in the patients while we are examining. An important thing is to maintain the distance. At least 1 meter distance should be maintained. The patients who are coming to the OPD should be given a face mask during communication. So this will prevent in the infection.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Jyoti. I think there is a discussion about the type of mask. So, patient should not be asked to wear N95 mask.
No.
So, because there is a question if the N95 increases SpO2 and the patient is in labor. So, we will not advise N95 mask to the patient. The patient can wear a simple surgical mask. And regards the type of mask that the healthcare providers are supposed to wear. So, depending on the availability, if we have N95, it is preferable. But even a 3-ply mask is good if we are actually taking the other precautions of maintaining distance. So especially PPE should depend on the area in which you are working. So if it is a OPD area or if it is a screening area, then it is a lower level of a 3-ply mask would work. But if it's a COVID positive, then of course you will use a respirator or an N95 mask is absolutely essential. So, Dr. Bimla, there's a question on telemedicine. So, in this era of COVID-19, so what do you think is the role of telemedicine?
So, telemedicine is a big, I would say, like a blessing at this time, because it helps to reduce the number of contacts with the system, which is already it is burdened. And like in this presentation by sir also, it was emphasized that 4 essential ANC visits are important. But other than that, if the woman has not any major problem, she can consult the healthcare provider through telephone. And like minor problems, she can discuss that on phone. At the same time, the provider has the responsibility to tell about the warning signs. He should tell about what are the danger signs and help her to monitor, like daily fetal monitoring of the fetal movement can be done by her. And if she can look for the fetal edema and things which are danger to her life, and she should be clearly told that when there are danger signs, she has to visit. And one more thing very important is that even if the woman is COVID positive, that woman has not to attend the ANC clinics, routine ANC clinics, but the teleconsultation can be done with her and she can be counseled, because at that time there is a lot of apprehension at the woman's end and the family's end. So counseling through telemedicine and helping small issues can be of a great help.
Sir, I think there is one more question which has been already mentioned in the presentation and still it needs to be reinforced once again. The number of antenatal visits at this time.
Yes. Usually we have been asking women to come every month till 28 weeks and every 2 weeks lead, and in the last 4 weeks every weekly. But this will mean approximately 6 to 8 antenatal visits. And in this current scenario of COVID, it is possible to reduce such visits. Now WHO and other authorities advocate that 4 visits can suffice. First visit at around 12 weeks, second around 20 weeks, third visit at 28 weeks, and fourth around 36 weeks. This last visit is probably the most important when we plan her mode of delivery, her place of delivery, and we counsel patient and her family members that how we will go around. We also make in advance arrangement for shifting her to a place where she will deliver if she happens to live in a area away from the hospital. So this is how we can modify, and these 4 visits will essentially provide her most of the care which we give. And in addition, we always provide her with the phone number of the health worker and also a phone number of the hospital where she is planning to deliver. Suppose she has suddenly developed some problem, she needs to consult. Before rushing to hospital, she should first talk to the doctor or other health worker and then only if necessary reach the health facility.
Thank you, sir. So, Dr. Panna, I would like to ask, they have put a question that if we are using the PP during cesarean section, they are encountering the problem of fogging in the goggles. So, how can we go about that? How can we decrease that thing?
Yes, so I think we are also facing that problem of fogging, and despite a lot of theories of you could use something like a soap, put that thing on goggles, and put something like a collar on your goggles, but nothing really works. So what I did last time was put face shield, and because I'm wearing specs, so if you wear a specs and a face shield, then that might be better than. So if you have problem comes when you're wearing goggles and a face shield and then you have specs. So maybe you could just try, but then this is something that everybody is still struggling. So I would just say and sympathize with you that you are not alone. So I think that is the only thing we can tell about this. Everybody is struggling with this issue and there is no solution for this right now.
Thank you, Dr. Parna. Then another question there is whether the safe distance is 1 meter or 2 meter.
So important point about this is that what is the definition of close contact? So the definition of close contact is less than 1 meter for more than 15 minutes. So that if has happened would define a close contact, and then that defines a high risk. So so this is the importance of 1 meter. And when you have guidelines on what should be the distance between two beds, or between a mother cot and a baby cot, then it becomes 2 meters. So it is a safe distance of from a healthcare facility point of view is like a 2 meter distance. But when you want to define what is a significant contact, then it becomes 1 meter.
Thank you, Dr. Panna. Another question they have asked. Please do enlighten us if we advise cleaning with hypochlorite solution between the patient's on examination table. So they want to ask whether between two patients should we use hypochlorite solution to clean the tables.
Yeah. Use of hypochlorite between two examinations and between two patients is recommended, and this is an important step for preventing infection spread. And all the tables and the surfaces which are exposed should, after every like you also emphasize that even in the OPD, all the surfaces should be cleaned with hypochlorite, and after delivery, naturally it is the routine practice where we have to, in between clients, use the hypochlorite solution.
So thank you, ma'am. Then another question there is, what should be the duration of quarantine for the healthcare worker if they have come in contact with a COVID positive patient? So, Dr.
So we have to understand what was the level of exposure. So I think this is a very, very pertinent question, because recently I heard that there was one patient and some 50 healthcare workers were quarantined. So I think there were more quarantines than patients. So we need to understand that after every exposure we have to evaluate our level of risk. Now if we have done a cesarean section of a COVID positive patient with full PPE, so we are expected to do a cesarean section with full PPE. Full PPE means a level 3 PPE, that would be a full coverall, which would be, and along with N95 mask and a face shield and an impermeable material gown or a coverall along with gloves. So so if we are wearing a full PPE, then obviously no quarantine is required. If your exposure has been without PP, right, and the in that situation, then you need to assess. So without PP or an incomplete PP, then in that case, what was your level of incomplete PP? So was the incomplete respiratory incomplete, or was it a contact incomplete? Respiratory incomplete means that you are not wearing a mask or a face shield, and the contact means you were not wearing a gloves and you had touched a patient who was positive. So depending on that, your risk might be a low risk or a high risk. Now a high risk contact would need to be quarantined, but a low risk contact still does not. So if the patient, you had an exposure and you were wearing a mask, and the patient is wearing a mask and you were wearing a face shield, then in that situation you still are a low risk exposure. You don't need a quarantine, but you would need to be tested on day 5. Even some agencies even say that you don't need to be tested, but still if you are very worried, you need to be tested on day 5 and day 14 of the exposure. So this is the protocol that is being followed at our institute, and this is what we follow. If you are a low risk exposure, we don't need to be quarantined, but we might be tested if needed and if we are worried or if we are symptomatic on day 5 and day 14. If you are a high risk, it's better. High risk meaning you were not wearing a mask, or the patient was not wearing a mask and you got exposed without PP, then you get yourself tested, then you quarantine yourself, isolation, and then tested on day 5 and day 14.
Thank you, Dr. Vandana. I think we can take one more question. So I want to ask, they are asking, can we do a COVID rapid test mandatory for all the labor admissions in near future to prevent infection among the healthcare workers?
Yes. There is currently problem of availability of test on a large scale. The test which we use and is current gold standard, RT-PCR, takes time. It takes about 4 to 6 hours. It is costly. So as of today, we are not in a position to conduct this test for all patients who come to our labor room facility or come in labor. But as things improve, as we have greater facility for testing, maybe all those patients who are admitted, whether for labor or for other procedures, will undergo this test. As of now, this test is being advocated if you happen to be from a hotspot or you had come in contact with a suspect or a positive patient.
Thank you, sir. Now we had a very interactive sessions, and I thank you all for the session, and we thank all our viewers also. Thank you.
Thank you.